Hello everyone. So I'm scrambling together this evening a last minute Valentine's card. I won't be doing any editing to this video and I don't know what I'm doing, so I can only hope that it all goes well. I've got an idea of what I want to do, so let's see how we go. I will be using the sentiment from my own stamps, my own range. I was thinking of using You Rock. So hopefully if it all goes to plan, that one will be the one that I use. And then the main image, I was hoping to use this Refuse Normal from Visible Image. I was hoping to use this main image here. So I thought that would be quite apt with the You Rock sentiment. And then I'm just going to use Shape It Up, I think, just to add some extra detail. So let's get started. So I will be using an A6 card blank, top fold, standard, and then I'll be working on a white panel to go atop of that. So I need to trim this down, but first I need to ensure that the image will fit. So it looks like it will fit on there quite nicely. So I'm just going to trim that down ever so slightly with that image in mind, just to leave a small white border. So I am a lazy crafter. I measure by eye and then just mark up rather than use numbers. That is something you will get used to with me. So let's just trim this down where I've made those markings. There. And I tend to, if they're of a decent size, this one I'll dispose of, but this one where I do trimming, I will keep that, and I've got a little box and I use them for sentiments in other projects. Right, so let's see how that fits on there now. And I've trimmed that all to the right size. I'm working on this just so that I know where I'm working and that I am in shot. So I've not used this one yet. I'm challenging myself to, every time I make something, to use something from my stash that I've not previously used. So this is the Refuse Normal from Visible Image. And I'm hoping that that will fit on there nice and snug. Yeah, I think that will work just about right. So I'm going to use my stamping platform. I can't afford to have any of that not stamped properly. I'm just getting that stamping platform. So let's pop those away. Let's keep myself in some sort of order here. Right, so I'll pop my card into the platform. And then position this. Oh, always tough to get off the acetate with that first use, aren't they? Okay, so and that will go just about nicely, I think about there. I'm going to leave a smaller gap at the top than I am at the bottom, because the bottom is where I'm going to be putting the sentiment. So I'm going to pick that up, and that may pull the card with it. We don't want that, so I'm just going to use a paintbrush just to hold that card down. So for this I'm going to use Tuxedo Black Memento. Now this is, I don't know if it's the ink, the make itself, or with my ink pads, but I've certainly re-inked them, and it's not great. So I will need to go in several times with this. But it's the best one with regards to using alcohol inks, which is what I will be doing. So I will need to use my puck for this once I can find it. There we go. Just to give that a good impression, because I have dexterity issues, which means I can't use too much pressure in my hands. Right, so again, I'm just going to use that paintbrush just to hold that down while I pick that up. And then I'm going to go in with a second application. In fact, I know what I'm going to do. I am going to stamp that, but I'm going to heat emboss this. So I'm going to finish that off. And then I'm going to go in with another coat of ink, but this time I'm going to use my Versamark. So it's not actually Versamark, is it? It's Versafine. But I can heat emboss with Versafine. And then by heat embossing, it gives a nicer finish, in my opinion. Okay. So I'm going to bring in some clear embossing powder. And I'll just pop that aside for one moment. And as I say, this is just clear embossing powder, because we've already got the black from the stamping. That's a fantastic image. Very powerful. Okay. So, excuse the noise while I heat set this. Always takes a while to warm up. There we go. And there's not, I mean, there's detail in this stamp, but not an awful lot that's going to need colouring. So hopefully it'll be straightforward enough to complete this one without too much fuss. There we go. So that's our image. Fantastic. So I decided on, I've done a lot of blue cards lately, so I decided to use purple as my main colour. So what I'm going to do is come around the edges with Villainous Potion, and then I'll colour in afterwards the image. So I'm just going to bring in my messy mat. And all I'm going to do is bring that colour in and just stop when I get to the image. It doesn't matter if it overlaps ever so slightly, but doing my best there to stop once we reach the image. I'm just taking some of the excess off on the mat first. And it is a fairly straightforward image to use this technique on. There's not too many nooks and crannies that I have to duck in and out of. Just going back over that bit there. Yeah, I'm taking the excess off where I initially go in, but then also using some of that excess as opposed to going back into my ink pad. We don't need to keep going back into the ink pad. We have plenty to use up on the messy mat first. So now I'm going to go back in, remove some of the excess, and just smoothen some of that out. And then go back in, continuing as we were. Just going round them details. It's fairly straightforward enough, just to avoid some of them smaller areas. I'm just going to tidy some areas up, just make the colour more consistent. Okay, and I'm fairly happy with that. So just pop that aside for now. I shouldn't be needing that again. I'm just going to get my cloth out. So I have to excuse the state of my cloth. Oops, and I've just knocked the camera, sorry about that. I use an old car chamois that I just wet and then put in a airtight container as my cloth, and then just give it a clean after every use. Right, so I'm going to darken those edges with some blue, and for that I thought Blueprint Sketch. Bear with. Sorry, I'm just shaking the camera about there a little bit, but I knocked it and repositioned it. Just putting that back into position. But these things happen, don't they? Right. So I'm going to bring that messy mat back in, and I'm just going to go around the outside edges with the Blueprint Sketch, just to darken those edges up a little bit. And then just bringing that in a little bit more at each corner. and then back down the edges. So back down the edge. And the corner. And the last corner. Just cleaning that up a little bit here. And then just back down this edge here. There we go. So what I might actually do is just go over some of those edges, some of those where it's blended, where the two colours have met, and blend them in a little bit better than I already have done by coming back in again with the Villainous Potion and just going over those blends. Like so. Lovely. That's also an opportunity to pick up any areas that I haven't quite managed to cover in the first instance. That would do me. I like those colours together. As powerful as the image itself, I'd say. So now I'm going to start colouring my image. So I'm quite nervous about this part because normally I like to practice when I'm colouring. But I've got the colours that I'm going to be using. So for the funky hair, I'll be using, well, for all of it, I'll be using my Copic markers. And for the hair, I'll be using V09, BV08 and B79. So the B79 is the blue. So I'm going to use the blue on the outside edge of the hair and just pull that in. Literally just flicking into the hair. This part I could quite happily get lost in. It's a very therapeutic process, is colouring. I can definitely understand why it was a craze not so long ago. I'm not sure if it still is, whereby people would colour for therapy. It is definitely therapeutic. So I'm just putting the pen down on the outside edge of the hair and just flicking it into the middle so that we don't have any blunt lines in the middle. And then I'll go in with the V09. I use the brush tip. I never actually use a chisel tip on any of my pens. And I'm doing the same thing, but this time I'm going in from the scalp towards the blue, but leaving some white area in the middle. And then I'm going to use BV08 to pull those colours together. And to do that, I'm going to go back down to the purple and flick. Place it down and flick out towards the blue. And the flicks will blend. So the flick between the BV08 and the blue will blend. go. So that's the hair. Now for the skin tone, I'm going to use E51 as my base colour and then E95 for the shading. I haven't actually got colours out for the detail. So I'm just going to put my base colour down all over. And now where I've heat embossed this, I can really afford to just go over those lines as sloppy as I like. And the embossing is protecting my image. So avoiding the cross, the earring, avoiding the teeth and the lips and the tongue. I think actually I'll colour those lips in with a nice bold colour that we've used from the hair as well. We'll give this person a nice bold lipstick to match their nice bold hair. So I'll go in with my E95. So I'm going to do the whole of the... I don't like that colour. I'm just picking up a different brown. I'm going to try E21. Right, so I prefer that one, but I'm not entirely sure. It's very scalp-like. So I'm going to go over it again. This time I'm going to use sand. That's better. That's more what I was looking for. The scalp is a different tone to the rest of your head, isn't it? Right, so the scalp, and then I'll use the E21 again for the shading. So I'm going to bring that round, all round the scalp line, under the chin, down the back, above that collar, and where else? We could put some here on the top lip, and then under the bottom lip, and then just along that crease there as well. Around the ear, and then maybe a little bit under the eyebrow and under the eye. And then I'll go back in again. Was it E51 that I used? Yeah. And just go over all those areas again, but just really bringing that colour out now. There we go. And then that should take a moment just to dry and for those colours to settle. Right, let me give, I think I'm going to use BV08 for the lips. There's not much lips here, but just where I can see some lip, I'm just applying that as though it were lipstick. Fantastic. And then I might actually do the collar in the same colour, but just avoiding all the studs. So actually what I'll do is I'll use the V09 as my base colour. So I'll lay that colour down. Just avoiding all those studs. And then I might actually use the B79 to give the shade. Yeah. And I'll just pick up a couple of areas and just add that to there. There's no expertise involved here. So them studs need to be silver, don't they? So for that, I'm going to use my silver gel pen. And I'm just going to colour all of those in with said silver gel pen. And I'll also, there's some hoops on the person's ear, so I'm just going to give those some detail with the silver. And then here. And then there's not much of the safety pin to colour, so I'll just go over what I can. And then the cross, I'll colour in silver too. Okay, and then that all that leaves now is the tongue. So I might use E93. Let me see what sort of colour this is. Yeah, I'll use E93 for the tongue. And then I might use the E93 just to add some detail to the inner ear. Oh, not quite the earlobe. Just where there's shadow within the ear. So let's also add some around there. And just blend that in again with my Milky White E51. And that's all the detail on the person done. Apart from the nose ring. There we go. Use the silver for that as well. Other than that, it just leaves the teeth, but I'm going to leave the person with some enviable white teeth there. So all that leaves is to add some, I'm just going to put my pens out of the way. Bear with. Now all that leaves now is to add some detail using, I think I will use what I said, the Shape It Up. Again, I've not used this one, so I'll need to get into the packet. Yeah, I'll use Shape It Up. Now there's lots of bubble type details on the hair and just surrounding it, and I think therefore I'm actually going to use the bubbles. Well, first of all, I'll use these lines, and I will use black because I think this image can handle the black. So it's not entirely on there, on the inking. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to heat emboss these details as well. So I'll use anti-static first, so that we don't risk the embossing powder getting stuck in areas we didn't want it. Oh, I thought there was my light was setting a light there. It's all the powder floating underneath the light. Right, so as I said, I'm going to actually heat emboss this. So I'm going to bring that line across here and then across there. So I'll need my ink pad, but I seem to have misplaced that. I could have sworn I just had it. Where have I misplaced? I've put the ink pad somewhere, guys. Oh, bear with. One moment. Sorry. I cannot for the life of me find the ink pad that I was using, the VersaFine. So I'll be using the VersaFine Claire? Who is she? This will work in the same way. So I'm just going to stamp that across here. And then repeat that process just up the top here, but not so far in so as not to cover the image. I'm just going to wipe that down and pop that away. And again, I'll be using clear embossing powder to emboss those areas. And then just removing any that's stuck in areas that it shouldn't have. And then up here as well. Alright. So I'm just going to heat set that, so excuse the noise for one moment. Did I knock it? I must have knocked it. Here. So I'm just going back in. There we go. I don't know when I did that or how. I'm sure I'll see it when I play the video back. Right, so as we were. By not bringing them colours all the way in and just inking around the image, it looks as though there's a halo around the image, which is, it's a lovely effect. So then I will go in with some of the little circles, and I'll do the same as I've done previously. So I'm just going to find some areas, pick out some areas, stamp those circles. So I'm just looking for any larger areas that I can go in on. We can go here and it just complements the circles that are in the larger image. And then we'll go up here. And then I think there's room for just one more here. Yeah. Let's just clean that up. Okay. And as before, I will use clear embossing powder. Oh, I found my ink. I don't know why I put it there. You do the strangest things, don't you, when you're crafting? It's like looking for your glasses and the whole time they're on your head. We've all been there, haven't we? Or looking for your car keys and you've put them in the fridge. I'm not alone, am I? Right. How are we looking? Yeah, looking good so far. All that is left is, let me see how that looks on there. I think I'm going to go round the edge with a black ink pad and then I'll add the sentiment. So I'll use my VersaFine Clair Nocturne and I'll just drag that along the edge like so, and I'll repeat that across all edges. So far so good. There we go. So I'm just going to blast that with the heat gun. Because it is a pigment ink, so it will stay wet and inevitably it will smudge. So it does take a little while to dry. But it's worth it. But please hang around. Please stay with me. Alright, nearly there, guys. just the last one here at the bottom. There we go. So all that remains now is for me to do the sentiment. So I'm going to stick this down to my card blank. And then we can work on the sentiment. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, so I didn't leave much of a white border. So I'm just holding that down for the glue to grab. Excuse me. Just having a drink. Sorry about that, guys. I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat there. I've also noticed that I have got some black ink here. So despite my efforts, it has smudged. So I'm just going to go in with my sand and rubber eraser, mono. I'm just using the sand end. I'm just going to see if I can lift some of that ink. There we go. So that's better. It's not perfect, but that's better. One moment. So now for the sentiment. So for the sentiment, I'm going to be using more Narky sentiments, and I'm going to use the You Rock sentiment from that set. So I need to prepare my piece of card with my anti-static, because I'm going to be heat embossing this in white. The black ties in with the black detail, and the white embossing will tie in with the outside border. Okay, so I need my stamping block, and I'll just pop that on there. And I need an embossing powder, embossing ink. So for that I'll use Versamark. And then in fact I'm going to do that at this end, and then I'm going to leave a flag, a tail end here. If you've caught any of my head during this filming, I've washed my hair ready to dry, and I currently have a towel around it. So you may have caught the towel. It may have come into shot once or twice, I'm afraid. Right, so white embossing powder I'm using. It's a detail white. This is just a cosmic shimmer. So we'll go in again, just for safe measure. That's even better. So I'm just going to pop that back into pop that away. I'm going to heat set that. and then we'll trim that down. And then, as I said, I'm going to give that a little tail, I think. Just a little on the end there. And then this is just going to sit just on the right hand side. So I'll just stick that down with some glue. And that will pretty much complete the card. So this is my Valentine's card. I'm not into traditional Valentines, so I like to do things a little bit different. I thought this was different enough. All done. So there we go. I like that. I love the colours. I think it's a powerful card. So, thank you for joining, and hopefully I'll be back with another video for you very soon. Have a good evening. Happy Valentine's. Bye.